Hi guys, we're back. And this morning when I took my dogs on their daily walk before I started work, I noticed when I came around the corner of the little crescent that I walk that there was Baltimore Orioles at one of the feeders there. I have always enjoyed, derived a lot of enjoyment from watching the birds. And I'm very fortunate because at my house, there's a lot of fairly good sized trees in and around the area, and the birds seem to come back year after year. We've got all your usuals. We've got your chickadees and your sparrows and your blackbirds and grackles and, that kind of stuff. But what I really enjoy are I call them the showbirds, the ones that make a pretty show. So we get cardinals every year. There's a mom and papa cardinal that come back. And one year they actually brought their young one down onto the deck, and I was able to get fantastic photos of them with this little one on the deck. We have mourning doves. They're pretty. Blue jays, of course, which are very loud and squawky but make a really pretty show. My personal favorite, I think, would have to be the Baltimore Orioles, though, and the hummingbirds. And I am very fortunate because I have both in abundance just about this time. Now, I was thinking that I wouldn't see them yet because it has been so unseasonably cold, but evidently the Baltimores are here, which means it won't be long and we'll be starting to see the hummingbirds. Normally by Mother's Day weekend, the lilac bushes and like the weeping crab and the weeping cherry in my backyard are all in full bloom. They're quite late this year because I often see the hummingbirds in and around those flowers. So anyways, I thought, well, now that I've seen the Orioles in the neighborhood, it's time to dig our feeders and such out of storage and give them a cleaning and get them set up again for the year. And I thought I would bring you guys along while we did that. So let's talk a little bit about bird feeders, and caring for our urban wildlife. Okay, so as you can see here, I've got, I've got some dog treat, my dog's Kongs there, those red plastic things, but pretty much everything else on here is related to bird feeders, hummingbird or oriole feeders. We've got our onions growing as an experiment here. There's another oriole feeder, hummingbird feeders in pieces, and we're going to go over here because first things first, we want to make our nectar. So I'm going to try and put the camera down here so you can see what we're doing. Go. Okay, so everybody seems to have their own kind of recipe for nectar for hummingbirds. The one that's always served me pretty well is really, really basic, and it's 1 cup of sugar to 4 cups of water that you have brought to a boil. This is just nicely off the boil. I'm going to mix it in. The key is that you want to do 2 things. You want to stir it and stir it and stir it until all that sugar dissolves and the water becomes clear. And then you want to make sure you let it cool completely before you fill your feeders. A lot of people ask about putting food dye in orange or red in their hummingbird nectar, and you really don't need to do that. It's really not good for them. It's not naturally part of their diet. Okay, sugar water isn't in a natural part of their diet either, but this is at least close to the nectar that they would get from flowers. So this is just a supplement, but you really don't need to add those extra dyes or anything. So don't do that. A lot of feeders already come colored on the outside, so whether you have dye in them or not, they look colored. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside to get cool because we can't use it just yet. So this little hummingbird feeder, I have several hummingbird feeders, 1, 2, 3, I think 5 throughout my backyard because, like I said, I get hummingbirds in abundance. This one just got overlooked last year when I was taking all my things in. So it's still, although I have washed it in the sink, with the dogs again. Here we go. Why don't you go, Winston? Go find your sister. Okay, so like I said, this one just got overlooked when I was putting things away for the winter. So it is still, although I've washed it, there's still some like mold or bacteria, some growth up in here that you don't want in with your hummingbird nectar. So I'm quite sure you're going to think that I am losing my marbles when I tell you what I'm about to do as to how to get rid of this, but we're gonna go ahead and do it anyways. Hopefully this little funnel is gonna be big enough. These are some seed beads that you can pick up at the dollar store. These are kind of the long skinny ones as opposed to the little short round beads that you might see in like craft items. But we're gonna pour some of these in. I'm gonna have to jiggle your, no, not wide enough. Let me see if I've got a better funnel. We'll just upsize our funnel here and see if that helps at all. Whoops. Yeah, a little bit. Work in progress, I guess. There we go. All right. So I'm dumping a good chunk of that bag of beads in here. And again, I know you think I've lost my mind, but I've got a little bit of water in here and literally 1 drop of like Dawn dish detergent. That's all it takes. Give it a cover and shake. The little glass beads in there agitating around are going to scrub all of the extra junk off that you can't reach with your washcloth or even your bottle brush if you have it. This is also something you can do if you still have pennies laying around. Weird trick, but if you have a lot of lime scale buildup in the bottom of your coffee decanter, if you put a little bit of water and a handful of pennies in there and just give them a shake, it'll take that lime scale right off, and then you just have to give your pot a really thorough washing and rinse. Okay, so we've been shaking our hummingbird feeder with our dish soap and our liquid in it, and I don't know if you guys can see, but it was all black and kind of yucky up in here before, and now it is not at all. It is looking nice and clean. So I'm going to just dump the water out through a strainer so that I don't lose my beads down the sink. We'll set them on a paper towel to dry, drain out the water, give it a nice wash, and then this feeder will be good to go. Okay, so we're still waiting for our hummingbird nectar to cool. It's not a good idea to put it in the containers when it's warm. So let's move on and talk a little bit about our Baltimore Orioles and feeders. So Baltimore Orioles are beautiful, beautiful birds, and there's a couple varieties of them that you will see typically around here. There is the regular Baltimore Oriole. Down at Long Point, you may occasionally see what's known as an orchard Oriole. They are a little bit darker, almost more of a coppery orange color than the bright electric orange ones that you'll see typically in my neighborhood here. Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous birds. They're very loud. They have a very distinct song, and they're fun to have in your neighborhood. I find that they will be here, and until they get babies in their nests that they have to devote to feeding with insect food, they will be here for a good, few weeks. You'll see them coming every day to the feeder, and it's quite fun to watch. So Orioles will eat a lot of different things. So they will drink hummingbird nectar. I've watched them get on my hummingbird feeder and stick their beaks in the little holes before and drink the nectar, and that's fine. Orioles also really like grape jelly. So I did pick up some in anticipation of when they would be back. So I did pick up some grape jelly, knowing that my Orioles would soon be coming back, and I will be putting, this feeder's a little kind of different and neat actually, because this part screws out, and then underneath here you would fill with nectar, and then you put your grape jelly up on top. The other thing that Orioles really like to eat are oranges, orange halves. So if you do have access to some fresh oranges and you can just kind of cut them in half, you can leave them out on a plate, or you can somehow stick them on a spike or something in your garden. They will love that. I'm going to try a couple different things this year. In addition to this feeder that I've got, I did take some old teacups that I had that I don't really use anymore. I just glued the saucer to the cup with some E6000 glue, which is pretty strong and pretty quick setting. I'm going to try one of these with some grape jelly in the bottom, just on the railing of my deck, where it's nice and stable. It shouldn't really rattle around or move around too much. So we'll see if we can get the Orioles to come in a little closer so I can get a better look at them, maybe get some good photos. The other one that I did, just the same way with the glue, I'm thinking I might want to try and save this, if I can get an orange half, I think just a half orange stuck in the cup so that they can roost here, kind of rest here and eat the orange out of the cup. I think that would be kind of neat. What I'm sort of waffling about now is how to get this onto like a spike in my garden or like a little platform in my garden, so that it's not gonna move and scare the birds or fall apart, fall and break. So anyway, that's a work in progress. So that's Oriole feeders. And again, I'll put some Hummingbird nectar in the bottom of this one as well. While we're talking about backyard wildlife, let's not forget our pollinators, because everybody knows bees are in big trouble lately. There's hive collapse that people really don't know why the beehives are dying. But you can be sure of one thing, and that is if our pollinators die, we are in big trouble as as the human race. So we need to be kind to our pollinators. And I know everybody has a really hard time leaving dandelions and stuff in their lawns. But if you can't leave the dandelions alone for them, maybe consider planting some flowers in your garden, maybe coneflower or bee balm is a great one. They love that. Something for them to eat. And don't forget about giving the bees an opportunity to have something to drink. So I'm going to show you what I do for the pollinators. So in my sink here is just a little, like a metal bucket that I picked up a couple of years ago at the dollar store. And as you can see, I have filled it with all manner of bits and bytes. There's these that you get at the dollar store. They're like little flat back glass marbles. There's also some beads and some regular marbles that my son no longer plays with. So what I like to do is I've given this a nice a washing, because it was outside all winter. I didn't bother to put it into storage. I just brought it in, took all the marbles out, washed them, strained them. Now I'm going to take just cold water and I'm going to fill it just so that the tops of those marbles are kind of poking through the water. I think maybe a little bit more. The idea with this thing is that the marbles act as a place that the pollinators can land, bees can land on there, and they can get themselves a drink of fresh, clean water without falling in or getting hurt in some way. So I just keep this on my deck, and I've seen bees use it. It's kind of neat to watch. They don't bother with you. It's right up really in amongst all my patio furniture, with some succulents in the corner, and they really seem to like it. And it's kind of a conversation piece. A lot of times people will come over and they will look on my deck and they will say, what you doing with the bucket full of marbles? Well, that's what I'm doing with the bucket full of marbles. I'm trying to be kind to our pollinators. So that being said, another great thing that you can do in the summer, it's still a bit early for it, I think, already, although I have seen some butterflies outside, is I do like to feed the butterflies as well. What do you feed butterflies? Well, they will come down and they will feed off of orange halves that you have set out for the Orioles if the birds do not chase them away. But what else I like to do for them, this is a banana that I put in my freezer in the peel. And what I like to do is I will get it out, I will, excuse me, thaw it ever so slightly, slice, make an incision kind of thing right down here, and kind of give it a squeeze so that the banana that's inside, which when it thaws will be very mushy, will kind of puff up through the skin. And then you just lay this on a plate somewhere, and the butterflies will come in and they will have a heyday eating off of that. the thing with doing this is you have to make sure you're not in a spot where you're going to get raccoons. You don't want to entice wildlife that you don't want. But if you keep it up on your deck in a high traffic area where like a raccoon would not go, you should be okay. And it's really neat to sit and watch the butterflies come. And I have many, many really great pictures from last year, which I will see if maybe I can find one or two to attach to the end of this video, of butterflies feeding off of bananas and orange habs in my backyard. So that's just a little bit about what you can do to help the pollinators in your backyard. I think now we're going to hang up our bird feeders. It still has a ways to cool, but we'll fill them up, we'll keep them in here, and then when everything is cooled, we'll put them back outside. Okay guys, so our nectar is nice and cool, and I have filled my feeders. Now you'll see this is upside down. Obviously I don't want to turn it until I'm ready to hang it back on the tree so that the nectar is flowing into the little receptacles here, but I don't like to fill them real full. Number one, if it's early in the season particularly and you don't have the volume of birds drinking the nectar, then it's just going to go bad in a few days and you're going to find yourself dumping it out needlessly. So I made a 4-cup batch and just kind of stretched that between all my feeders, and then I'll just make another one, keep it in the fridge so it's cool and ready to go, and you may go through it a little bit more frequently when you see them return to the feeders. But it's better to not throw it out and waste it. Similarly with the grape jelly, I just have like a small scoop in each feeder here, and we'll have to give you a video update on how those are going once we start seeing some bird activity. But for now, we're going to go outside and we're going to hang our feeders.